everyone, and welcome back to the Prestige webinar series. My name is Melissa Analfo, and I am the Client Success Specialist here at PrestigePEO, and I'll be your host this morning. Today we have with us Andrew Lubash, founder and CEO of PrestigePEO, Kathleen Sullivan, Associate Director of Benefits, and Carol Sawyer, the Controller here at Prestige. Before we dive in, I'd like to hand things over to Andrew Lubash so that he may share a few words.
Welcome, and thank you for attending our continuous series of Wednesday webinars. Again, wow, like I said, where we've been in the last 15, 16 months. Yeah, I remember when we first started doing the webinars in, last March and April regarding PPP loans, remote working, opening, closing offices. A lot of us basically were all thinking, this will be done by June or July. And here we are a year and a half later. But it looks like we finally have turned the corner. And I'm happy to have everybody on that is well and safe and that everybody is doing well. As we get into the process now, now we're starting to really talk about more of opening. Again, the conversation today will have to do with, obviously, the new COBRA legislation, which is incredibly confusing, but we're here to help you. We're here to help your cash flow, again, dealing with Prestige and with a PEO and give you that advice. And again, obviously now, a lot of confusion around when to wear a mask, when not to wear a mask. Hopefully we will get to the point somewhere soon that we never hear the word mask again as well. But we are getting there. And again, thank you for everybody's kind words throughout the last 15, 16 months. I know a lot of you have reached out to me, ask questions, anything that we've been able to do to assist everybody, all of our clients, in helping you get through this pandemic. We're here. Again, we're very proud to have you as our clients and working with you. And words can't describe, the Prestige staff. So before I suck all the air out of the room, again, one thing I always do mention on every one of these calls, my contact information, again, and I know a lot have contacted me directly. My email address is alubash, and I think maybe in the future we'll put this on here so I don't have to spell it out. Alubash, it's ALUBASH, @prestigepeo.com. My direct number that bypasses my switchboard is 917-258-0223. And then my cell, and yes, I walk around with one cell phone, 516-680-5021. So again, if anybody needs to reach out to me, you have a question, you have an issue, you have a problem, you're confused about something, you need to get to me, I am here to answer any questions you may have. So without that, I'm going to pass it back. Carol, I guess you'll set everybody up, introduce Melissa, and again, everybody stay well, stay safe. I think we're back. All right? Carol, I think you got to take yourself off mute.
We had to go off mute here as well. Thanks a lot, Andy. It's always great to have you at the beginning of the webinars for our clients to see that all levels of Prestige help our clients. So yes, we have a new host this time. Melissa Analfo, who is our Client Success Specialist, is going to be the host of these events going forward. And Melissa, all to you.
Thank you so much, Carol, and thank you, Andy. All right, so looking at today's agenda, our webinar is going to be opening with Kathleen Sullivan to go over the updates on the COBRA subsidy and the flexible spending offerings. After that, we're going to move on to discuss the updated CDC mask mandate and guidance and the implications that come along with that, followed by vaccination requirements and considerations in the workplace. As a reminder, all participants will be muted during the presentation. We do have Carol with us here in the Q&A feature of the chat answering your questions, and the video along with the slide deck will be posted on our website at prestigepeo.com/blogs. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Kathleen.
Good morning. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Andy. I am on board with your no mask optimism. I'm hoping for that day soon, too. So for my part today for the webinar, I'm going over some of the changes on the flexible spending, and then I'm going to get into the COBRA subsidy piece of the American Rescue Plan Act. We're going to talk about who's eligible for that COBRA subsidy, the timing, and then At the end of the presentation, my part, I'm going to hand it over to Carol. She's our controller and our tax expert, and she's going to go over how those subsidies are paid and those tax credits. Okay, so let's start with the flexible spending part. Okay, so Prestige offers two types of flex spending. They have the medical FSA, where employees can spend the money on anything the IRS deems a qualified medical expense. And then there's also the dependent care FSA piece. And that's for expenses for child care or elder parents if they live with you. And the child care is children up to age 13. So we had a few changes, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that. For the medical flex spending, the maximum annual contribution this year is $2,750, but Prestige is allowing our insureds to roll over up to $1,000 from 2021 to 2022. That's a change. At the end of last year, we did change it. It was $550, and then we moved it to $1,000. So we did allow employees to roll over from 2020 to 2021, $1,000, and we're going to do that again this year. So that makes it a little easier for employees when they're making their elections. I always tell people to be conservative, because you only want to put in your flexible spending what you're pretty sure you're going to spend. But having that $1,000 rollover limits your risk a little bit there. So it's a nice benefit. Now, the dependent care account, this was a big change. So the maximum before for the dependent care was $5,000 a year. That went up to $10,500. So that's a pretty significant change, and that's a nice benefit for employees who have children in daycare or elder parents that live with them that need help. So you can take advantage of that $10,500. If you weren't aware of that amount, or even if you were, you can make changes right now to your dependent care account. So if you can reach out to your benefit specialist, and they'll be able to add to your benefit max that you want to put in that account. All right, so that's it for the flexible spending. Now we're going to move on to the COBRA piece of the American Rescue Act plan. All right, so for this part of the meeting, I want to talk about the COBRA subsidy and the American Rescue Plan that was signed into law on 3/11. Some of the provisions surrounding this are unique for who's eligible and timing-wise, and it's a little unusual, so I want to make sure that everybody understands it. Okay, so one of the provisions is that they're going to pay 100% for COBRA from April till the end of September. So that's 6 months, and that's a really big benefit for employees. I want everybody to know that that time period is fixed, though. So it's not that any employee who's eligible for COBRA is going to get 6-month subsidy. That April to the end of September is a fixed time period. So it depends on when you're eligible and how much of that time you can use. All right. Who's eligible for this? It is not everybody who's eligible for COBRA. So this act is for employees who are involuntarily terminated or have a reduction in hours. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that. It is not for employees who leave voluntarily. It's not for employees eligible for COBRA because they got divorced or things like that. It is really for involuntary termination of employment and or reduction in hours. This new subsidy also applies to mini COBRA. So I just want to make sure I mention that. Okay, next slide. All right, so let's go into a little more detail on the timing and who's eligible. So people offered COBRA due to involuntary termination or reduction in hours, and the timing that's unique here is that it's for any employee who is still in their 18-month period from being offered COBRA originally. So that's not, I haven't seen that before in the industry. I've been in the industry a long time. I have seen COBRA subsidies before, but I never saw one that went back 18 months. So this is really unique, and it's a nice, it's a very nice benefit for employees who maybe are not offered group coverage right now. All right, so these to be eligible for this, you can be on COBRA right now, you can become eligible for COBRA, or you could have refused COBRA or come on COBRA and terminated anytime within the last 18 months. So if you're still in the window of 18 months, you can jump in and get this subsidy. So that's, it's definitely unusual, and I wanted to make sure everybody understands that. I want to go through a couple of examples because that is complicated, like Andy said. This law is a little complicated. So the first example is up here. An employee that was eligible for COBRA, April 1st of 2020, but did not elect COBRA at that time, could now enroll and be given the subsidy for the COBRA for the 6 months. They're still in that 18 months. So even if they didn't take it, they can now. Here's another example, a little different timing. Say an employee was offered COBRA January 1st of 2020. Maybe they were on COBRA for a few months, but then they terminated. They are still inside that 18-month window, so they could join COBRA again. They could enroll April 1st, and they'd get the subsidy for April, May, and June. Then their 18 months would be up. So that's a little bit of a different timing. I want to make sure everybody understands. All right, another example, third example. An employee has their hours reduced today, May 26th. They're eligible for COBRA June 1st. They'll get the subsidy June, July, August, and September. So they'll be able to take advantage of those 4 months. They can continue on COBRA after that, but there won't be a subsidy to pay for it. So they still get their time on COBRA, but they'll have the subsidy just for the 4 months. All right, hopefully everybody has that. Hopefully those examples help. I'm going to move on a little bit. So I mentioned who is not eligible, right? And that's people who leave their job voluntarily. COBRA events such as divorce, death, or loss of dependent status. Those are not eligible for the subsidy. They are eligible for COBRA, of course, but they're not eligible for the subsidy. It's also not available, and they're going to be pretty strict on this, for individuals or their family members that are eligible for other group coverage or Medicare. So I want to make sure that employees understand this, that this is not for you. If you left your job and you were offered COBRA, but you got a new job and you maybe don't like their coverage, but you're offered group coverage, employees do have to go on that other group coverage. They cannot take advantage of the subsidy. They can stay on COBRA if they want, but they pay for that themselves. All right, if an individual comes on and they're eligible for the subsidy and then they become eligible throughout this 6-month period for group health coverage, they must notify the plan in writing. That's very important. Failure to do so can result in a penalty of $250, or if they suspect fraud, that penalty could be the cost of the subsidy. So it's very important information. Stay on this page. Okay, so now notices have been sent. I do want to mention that the COBRA is for medical, dental, and vision. I want to make sure everybody knows that. It's not just medical, it's medical, dental, and vision. Notices have been sent to all the Prestige eligible individuals who've been terminated inside that 18-month window involuntarily or had a loss of hours. So they've all gotten their letters. Employees who are already on COBRA, and this is really important, so I want everybody to pay attention to this because this is super important. Employees who are already on COBRA, they elected it, and they've been on April and May. They will not automatically get that subsidy unless they fill out that subsidy election form and the attestation form. So they're going to get that in the mail, and then they'll have the subsidy. It's very, very important. If they don't fill that out and they don't attest to the fact that they're not offered other group coverage, they may not get that subsidy. So I want to make sure everybody pays attention to that. Prestige has sent those letters out to our employees, and our COBRA partner, ABA, has also sent that out to the employees terminated involuntarily that are still inside that 18-month window. If you want to see a copy of the form for one of your employees, you can reach out to your benefits specialist. They have access to those forms. Okay, so for this last part, I am going to pass it over to Carol, our tax expert, our controller, and she's going to talk about the credits and who's paying for the subsidy. So thank you, everybody, for my piece. I hope it was helpful.
All right, thank you, Kathleen. Yes, everything to do with taxes ends up in my corner of the world. So, unfortunately, those of you who have, followed along with me on the various tax credits that have occurred since the pandemic began, this is yet another payroll tax credit. Now, we couldn't possibly let people take it on the business income tax return. Let's pass it through the 941. So there's a lot of words on this page because this is the guidelines as are outlined in the legislation, but here's the short and quick of it. Any participants, any employees that are on the Prestige plans, be it Oxford, the various kinds that we have, the various carriers, Prestige will apply for the credit. We will be the one paying the insurance premium. The client will not be paying. We will be paying, and then we will apply for and get the credit on the 941. For those of you who do have your own medical, dental, or vision plan under your company name, so those of you that have one of those, you will know that. So those of you who are unsure, that means you're on the Prestige benefits. You will obviously be paying the premium because that's how we work the outside plans with you clients. But we will be applying for the credit on your behalf on the 941. As was mentioned last year when a lot of these credits started, we do have a Schedule R on the 941 that allows us to report all of this information under your EIN. And so we will apply for the credit, and when we get the refund, your invoice will be credited for that amount. What's going to be important for those of you who have an outside plan is keep us in the loop. You might have somebody that goes on COBRA. If we don't know about it, then I don't know to apply for the credit on your behalf. So please just communicate with your benefits specialist if you have someone eligible for the subsidy to make sure that word gets to me so that I can put it on the 941. And that's the extent of the tax credits for this wonderful new COBRA subsidy, which is helpful to many, but a hassle to those of us in the tax world.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carol and Kathleen. All right, so now we're going to start talking about the CDC and the latest guidance around masks. And I'm going to preface all of this with saying that your team is here to help you through this. With any policy change, you're going to want to consult your advisors. And so your HR business partner is prepped with guidance and best practices to help you through this. So the recent changes with the CDC and lifting mask restrictions for vaccinated individuals, it spread rapidly and very quickly. We now know that as long as you're outside of a healthcare setting, you no longer need to wear a mask or physically distance from others. But it's also important to understand that this is just guidance coming from the CDC. Individual states and then the local municipalities within those states reserve the right to have more restrictive guidelines. And then on top of that, local businesses can determine their own, responsibilities as well. So, for example, as you're finding now, if you're going into different places of business, you might still be asked to wear a mask, and that is still legal and compliant. Businesses can make those decisions. So it's crucial to note that although your state might have lifted that requirement, look up your local ordinances, partner with us, and determine if that's one, even a permissible course of action, and then we'll help you determine if that's the right one for you. For example, New York State has lifted their mandate, right? So individual businesses can make that determination. New Jersey has not yet. They are said to begin lifting it come Friday, but along with that are going to be a number of exceptions. So depending on your industry or the type of business that you conduct, you might still be required to wear said mask. When you are looking to follow this guidance, we do recommend that employers be prepared with, the following items. When we say fully vaccinated, we are referring to an individual who has completed 2 weeks following the second dose of a 2-vaccination series, or the single dose for the 1-dose vaccination. Just like with any change to your company policy, there are a number of items you're going to want to consider. Your industry and local municipality may alter your ability to lift that mask mandate, and when it comes to requiring or even gathering vaccination statuses of your employees. You're also going to have state OSHA requirements. So right now, OSHA is deferring to the CDC, but be prepared to adjust that. They might come out with more restrictive policy standards, and it is your obligation to follow along with that and adjust your policies as need be. As you begin to look at your policies with anything, again, a multi-step approach, okay? So once you have assessed local and state guidelines, you're then also going to want to think about what it's going to mean for your company to start talking about vaccinations. We know that you can require the vaccine, and you can require that your employees get it in order to return to work. However, you are going to want to be prepared to address any potential accommodations that are requested. On top of it, you're going to want to have a clear policy stating how you are requesting this information and how you're going to require it with your employees. We will get more into that later, but when you are addressing these accommodations, we always recommend that you address legal counsel and how to best move forward with this. This is to mitigate not only liability and risk upon your organization, but to create the most safest and consistent workplace for your staff. With the change in these guidelines, you might just end up wanting to know, well, who is vaccinated, right? Because if the guidance states if you're vaccinated, you can relieve your mask, so let's just find out who is vaccinated. Now you're going to get into the tricky world of documentation. So when you are requesting documentation, which you can, right, to see who is vaccinated if you don't want to go on that quote-unquote honor system, you want to be careful not to request specific medical documentation. Those vaccination cards that individuals receive is considered a medical record. So you do not want to request that in particular. And if you are provided that, be sure to not document that. Do not make copies, do not file that away. In fact, we recommend not asking for anything because of the risks involved. So if you do want to go the route of requesting documentation, it is a simple doctor's note, a yes or no, a pass or fail, if you will. You should designate an authorized representative to receive this information and then record the pass or fail. You can determine your own process, right? Perhaps you want to create your own sheet, if you will, that says something like individual's name, the date, did they provide documentation, are they vaccinated? That is as far as we recommend you go, and you want to be clear of who your employees are going to bring this information to, and then how are they going to be keeping those records. In the event that you do find at the end of the day you have perhaps accidentally saved some medical information, you want to be sure to not save those with your employee files. You're going to get into more medical retention laws, right? Best practice, give them back to the employee or get rid of them. Also be prepared to address visitors in the workplace. One thing that we do not recommend you do, at the very least, do not ask your guests for vaccination statuses. What you can do, as you've probably seen, you've seen, health screenings, again, recording a pass or fail, but you do not want to solicit this information from your visitors. Just like you do not want to solicit this information from your employees, you do not want to ask vaccination statuses unless it is a requirement of your workplace. Again, individuals might want to stay masked, and it's important to understand that discrimination or any type of retaliation or harassment on any type of individual on either end of the spectrum is strictly prohibited. You want this also outlined in your policies. In the event you have visitors or you have employees who want to maintain a mask, ask to have perhaps an accommodation to feel safe and remain in the workplace, have that outlined in your policy. Have a place for them to escalate concerns, and show that the workplace does have everybody in a consistent approach in mind. Like mentioned earlier, your human resources business partner is here to work with you and determine the best course of action as you move forward. This is for both your company and its employees. We know that no two businesses are alike, and your industries, might vary from one to the next, and we are prepared to help you through it. Additionally, keep checking our website and our newsletter. As guidance is updated, we're going to be sure to communicate everything you need to know. As we do wrap things up, though, I would just like to thank again Andrew and Kathleen and Carol for joining with us today to speak on these important items. Also, we have had Carol answering in the chat the entire time, so if you have asked a question, we will review it afterwards if we did not get back to you on that. As mentioned earlier, you're going to find this presentation along with the slide deck posted on our blog, and it's also going to be in our COVID Resources Center. You can find that at prestigepeo.com/COVID-19. On that site, we'll have a number of additional resources updated on the regular. Again, thank you so much for your time today. We look forward to meeting with you all again soon.